1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Together.
All right, and welcome back to the podcast here, folks. It is with a lot of excitement after a long time of working out our logistics and our schedules. We have finally got none other than Blake Wallenberg here from the Wolfpack Support Services. Blake, thank you for joining us here on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I am super excited to be here, and I'm glad it finally worked out in our schedules.
That's right. It's it's a tough deal when you got normal jobs and your working schedules, and of course, you as a first responder. I mean, that's kind of you're on the go nonstop with that. Yeah.
Yes. I've been an EMT in the ER recently, and I actually just transitioned into a new role as EMS liaison.
Oh, wow.
For 2 hospitals. So it's been full of learning new things and how to do a new job that I'm also kind of writing the job description for. So.
And on top of that, trying to be a good husband, good father, trying to get all that stuff. So yeah, we fully understand and respect
Absolutely.
that. So our whole purpose when we do these interviews, Blake, is we want to try to introduce our viewers and listeners to basically you and to the nonprofit here to give people an idea, obviously with the first responder support, veteran support services and so forth. So having said that, Wolfpack Support Services, what is it? Who is it? What do you guys do there?
Yeah. So Wolfpack Support Services is a 501c3 based out of Colorado, and we provide mental health services and resources, as well as financial aid to first responders, healthcare workers, and their families. And kind of, we always miss a few when we throw the first responders in there, but generally, that covers the police, fire, EMS, dispatch, which is often forgotten. And we also do corrections as well.
Corrections, yep.
So any kind of public emergency service, as well as anybody that works in a healthcare setting, whether it's a hospital, if you're an EVS person, or if you are a trauma nurse, really, they all experience some sort of a trauma related to the job. And so we cover all of them and their families. Excuse me.
No, that's so huge. I mean, it's, from the, one of the pieces we were talking about offline is the thing that I love about Wolfpack is how you guys are centrally focused. Your primary focus is on the first responder emergency services piece, where, that's not always the case. And in some others, they're a little bit more broad. So we love the fact that you guys specialize right there, but just like in the military and veteran support side, where they say everybody serves, the entire family serves, that is the same in emergency service. I mean, there's a sacrifice, there is the worry piece, there's the stress. I try not to go down too many negative roads, but I mean, we know the divorce rate piece that takes place in that line of work. And
Very
so,
high.
yeah, that support piece for the family, that's awesome, man. That's huge. So in the healthcare side, have you guys been seeing, I mean, it's COVID era, man, this has got to just change the whole game, right?
It is. It's been brutal. So, and really, it's a bottom up, top down. Everyone is affected.
Right.
Our doctors are seeing more patients. Our nurses are taking a ton of patients. Our EMTs and paramedics are taking a ton of patients, and that's busy in general. And then you add on the COVID protocols with different respirators or N95s, different, the masking requirements, the different, do we need to wear a gown? Do we not need to wear a gown?
Right.
Do I need to have an eye shield? Do I not need to have an eye shield? And honestly, there were times where I would have 3 shifts in a week and I would get updates about what the new protocol was every shift.
Yeah.
So it's been a super fluid situation. A lot of the healthcare individuals, the nurses and medics and EMTs that work in hospital have been leaving and working travel jobs.
Oh, wow.
And some are doing, local travel. And what they get is a ton more pay. The pay is crazy higher, right? You don't get the benefits, but who cares about that little benefit when you're making twice as much as you did?
Right. Right.
So the staffing has been limited. I can say at our hospital, we've been lucky to always be pretty well staffed. But earlier this month, we had 5 or 6 people out at the same time,
Dang.
staff wise, that were COVID. So, and that include EMTs and nurses. I don't think any of our paramedics had it at the time.
Well, and that's the piece that I think a lot of times we, as in the civilian world, we disconnect from and we forget. And that is when something affects the community, right? They forget that the EMS, these people, they are our community. That they're the same, but the difference is they're putting that service piece first, and they're doing their best to make sure they're taken care of, but they have the same worries that we have out there, and that just, it compounds so much heavier into the mental health side of things, and that's that's just one of those areas that we try to do our best to remind folks of. Hey, like the fires, those guys were out there, those men and women were out there protecting so many people, which they did a phenomenal, amazing job. But at the same time, probably wondering, is my house okay? Did my family get out? And that just talk about the impact that's got to have, on people. So you guys bring in these type of services out there that is so critical. What, in your opinion, so I'm going to be 50 this year. Okay. When I was a kid growing up, when we heard the term mental health, okay, it came with a stigmatism. Something I've been noticing in the last, say, 5 years, maybe, is really now, especially with a new generation that's a little bit more open with certain areas than my generation was. It's starting to change. It still has a long way to go, but people can say the word mental health now, and in the right circles, it doesn't have a stigmatism. It's considered, look, we need to work on mental health the same as we do physical health. Are you seeing that out there?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing the change begin, I think is a good way to put it.
Yep.
Right. Traditionally, many of our firehouses were all male. So there was this alpha, we don't talk about feelings. This is the job. We all know it sucks. Suck it up, buttercup kind of a thing.
Yep.
And as well as, the policing industry, right? They were very male dominated for a long time. And many of those systems are getting integrated. And we're still seeing, and I've interviewed and spoke with firefighters that are female, and, they tell us it's still there, but the mindset is starting to change.
Right.
And we're seeing that happen. And kind of that, like, one of our hashtags that we use all the time is end the stigma. And the reason we chose that is because it applies to everything, right? If you are a male or female firefighter, why can't you cry after a call? Some calls suck, they're life-changing, and you'll never forget them.
Yep.
And you just, why can't we? Why? And for some reason, the industry has just always frowned upon that. And now that's starting to change. And I see both in the ER and pre-hospital, when we have these horrible calls or horrible, traumatic events or traumas or whatever it may be, afterwards, you're going up to people and you're like, hey, are you doing okay? And like, yeah, I'm fine. I was frustrated. And they're like, no. Like mentally, are you good? And sometimes they'll be like, yeah, I'm good. Sometimes you hear the standard, yeah, I'm fine, which is like, I'm not okay, but I don't want to talk about it right
Yep.
now. I mean, I know with my own mental health that my wife gets that, are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. Or yeah, I'm fine. And that's the, okay, keep an extra eye on him. He's not good, but he's telling me he's not good without having to get into it,
Yep.
And for me, I think emotions have been brought into the medical first responder worlds so much more intimately, even since 9/11, right? We started seeing these bigger events where the outcome was this amazing pour of support for these people, but also the inner networks that were developed. It's obviously there's a long history of police and firefighters talking negatively about each other.
Sure.
But it's lost all of the truth behind it. And it's just you jabbing your friends, right?
Right.
Or like, oh, it would have been great if you could have gotten us, some traffic protection. But that you would risk your life for that officer if that's what it came to.
Absolutely.
And so that brotherhood, sisterhood value of it is it's definitely grown. And I think that we're getting more women in the industries is helping, right? Because we're getting more different perspectives of men, women, people that have families, people that don't, people with young kids, people with kids that are grown, and even the kind of the older guys that have, been doing this for 25 years and, you could see the smoke lines kind of there. those guys are starting to get it. And
right.
it's just because we're promoting it, and one of the biggest things that I try to promote just through the nonprofit is it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen that either phrase or hashtag or whatever its use was so much more.
Yep.
And in fact, the other day I saw it through the hockey community, and some hockey store had, said hockey supports mental health. It's a t-shirt they had made. And a friend of mine reposted it with just all he said was, it's okay to not be okay.
Yep.
And I think that's so, for some reason, people don't feel that way.
Right.
And whether it's a patient in the ER, I'm like, it's okay to not know how you're feeling right now. Like your family member's super sick, and it's okay if you have no idea what's going on.
Yep.
Internally, like feelings wise, I was like, that's fine. So you need to understand that.
That's powerful.
But yeah, and we've always given that to patients, and you always hear like doctors make the worst patients. But we also have fought that too from a personal side, right? Nobody in fire, nobody in EMS, nobody in the PD, no one's wanted to come forward and say, I'm struggling, right? Because that stigma, that how are people going to judge me? Who's going to know? Who's going to find out? Is it going to affect my chances for a promotion? It's been a laundry list of things that are fear. And now it's, you're looking at all these departments, like most of the departments in the Denver metro area have some sort of peer support group in place.
That's good. Yeah.
And it's fellow responders that are volunteering for this extra position. A lot of them you have to take, a certification class for.
Mm-hmm.
I know I did one. It was like a 5-day, 40-hour certification course. And I thought I knew some of, and it was, my eyes were open, and
wow.
I think that's important. I mean, right. I had been already doing this nonprofit.
Sure.
And when my eyes are open and I'm running a nonprofit that's geared towards mental health, that should say something.
Right. Right.
And I mean, our mental health system in general is probably the most broken piece of our medical system.
Well, and wouldn't you say that's partly due to just we've been attempting that for a long time, but realizing in the most recent years, a lot of breakthroughs, a lot of things that are happening here, that maybe it's not just environment, maybe there's something else. You and I were sharing something here that you brought up right at the very beginning of this before we started the interview. And that is trauma doesn't come in the same flavor. Everybody kind of takes it differently. And I think maybe my view is that a lot of the mental health industry is starting to catch on with this. And so they're starting to tailor and change and be a little bit more adaptive when it comes to some of their practice. So, does that have probably a lot to do with it, or something to do with it at least?
Totally. Not everybody is down for that traditional talk therapy.
Right.
We've implemented a couple different programs for equine therapy. And we've had awesome benefit, because we've noticed most of us in this realm takes a little bit for us to open up and talk about our own mental health. And the cool thing about that is you don't have to talk, right? You connect with an animal. The horses will actually match your heartbeat, and you can feel the energy. I thought it was total voodoo, and I did a half-day course myself. It was eye-opening. I left going, this has to be added to the nonprofit.
So I want to just interrupt real quick here, because what's so phenomenal about this is the first nonprofit that I connected with out here was Allegiance Ranch and Rescue. They rescue at-risk horses, usually literally from the slaughter pipeline. They rescue them, awesome. Rehab them, and then those horses are then used for veterans and first responder equine-related therapy pieces. That Dan and Gloria over at the Legion's Ranch, that's literally 2 minutes from my house, so it's in our neck of the woods over here. Yeah. They're super close, and I have witnessed it firsthand to watch that space and watch those things. Secondly, Operation Equine, who they do the same thing, and I'll get you connected with these guys after we're done here. But they do the same piece of that therapy piece, except they actually have mental health practitioners, licensed mental health practitioners on staff there, so they can kind of go. They actually literally have a lot of their sessions right at the ranch. They come out there and use that facility, or they'll use one down there. So that is so awesome that that's the recreational therapy piece. What brought me
amazing.
And no meds, as a modality, it's very much,
it's not a medication based.
Right. And Absolutely. So that's, of course, what grabbed my attention. Now, there are many cases out there that are warranted where medication needs to come with it. But nevertheless, so that is, I just wanted to share that with you. When you said equine, I'm thinking, holy crap, well, this is perfect. We'll exchange some information afterwards. I'm going to get you in contact. I can actually meet you out there at the ranch. We'll get it all set up.
That'd be fun. I'd love that.
So,
and so kind of expanding on where it really impacted me is I did this course and I had a blast. We were, it was a very neat course. They had a lot of energy work with the horses, as far as like using your energy to guide a horse to do certain things without touching the horse. And they had us doing stuff there. Like, you got to make that horse walk over that log and then go stand in this box that we've made for 5 seconds. And it was such a powerful lesson, because we're like, we got this. Well, we didn't have it at first. And try two, we had understood what they were talking about, on a greater depth, and no problem. Wow. It was the first time it was very much like the traditional mental health. We're trying to force someone else to do something.
Yep.
And then it switched to, well, hey, ask. And we essentially walked next to the horse, and he just cruised with us and it was so easy.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, we're like, I don't know how we're going to do this. They're like, you can't touch the horse. I was like, I have no idea. And then, yeah, it was pretty funny. And later we did some more limited, like one-on-one stuff. And I had a crazy powerful experience where I literally felt like I had a vacuum sucking out the negative energy.
Wow.
And, you know, mind you, I was 75, 100 feet away from anybody. And I had this like crazy powerful experience. And so after we were done with that, we did, you know, a group circle and we shared. And the one that I did was all first responders and healthcare professionals. So there were some firefighters, quite a few nurses, some EMTs and paramedics. So it was a very comfortable environment for us to open up and share. And I shared my experience. And we had, I want to say we had 2 or 3 licensed clinical social workers on staff. And after we were all done, one of them walked up to me and she goes, I'm really glad you shared that experience. And I said, I am too. And she said, no, I was on the other side of the arena and I watched it happen. And she goes, and I thought to myself, I wonder if he's going to share what he just went through.
Right.
So it was like the fact that it was superpower personally was one thing, but then I got that outside viewpoint of I watched that happen.
Yep.
It was as where Will Ferrell would say, it was mind-boggling.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about these are the services that you guys provide to first responders. You are the founder of Wolfpack Support Services, correct?
Yes, I am.
What led you here? I mean, there's a lot of obvious answers to it, but what's the origin story of what brought you to this point that said, you know what, I want to create this and make these services available to other people out there? How'd that happen?
So in 2018, I was still working at the hospital I work at right now, and I was in the ER. And a friend of mine had texted me a question. Hey, what's going on with this guy? I saw a really weird post on Facebook from his wife.
Hmm.
And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And we weren't very busy. So I jumped on and I was like, that doesn't sound good. Like, it sounds like there was an accident or something happened, because she's kind of talking in the past tense. And so I went up to my charge nurse and I said, hey, I've seen this post about Shane and I am friends with him. We have history. I need to know. You have to tell me what's going on. I know you're trying to keep this private, but I need to know right now. And I was told at work at about like 10:30 in the morning that he had taken his own life. And I collapsed pretty much in the med room, was in absolute shock. And honestly, I don't really remember a lot of the rest of the day, because mind you, my schedule at the time was 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. So
Right.
I worked a majority of my shift having heard this and still trying to get information and grasping little pieces of info here and there and trying to provide good patient care.
Sure.
And so, you know, I kind of had to do what a lot of us do, and I had to shut my emotional side off so I could be a good first responder, right? Because it doesn't matter what's happening in my life.
Right.
Someone else could be experiencing the worst day of theirs, and that's what we're there for. That's what we signed up for.
Right.
And I Shane and I hadn't been crazy close, right? You know, when this happened, I mean, I saw him, I want to say 4 or 5 days before it happened in the ER, and he brought us a heroin overdose. And I'll never forget the last thing I was like, "What's up, brother?" And he's like, "Not much, you know, just another heroin OD." That was the last thing he ever said to me.
Oh, geez.
And it's kind of, you know, it's powerful. But then as I went through the thoughts, you know, I was like, wow, we went through fire academy together. We used to work together on a volunteer fire department at Lyons in Colorado. And we went through fire academy together, you know, and then the funny stuff started coming out. Like, I remember sitting there on the little curb at fire academy after a burn, and we're all eating lunch, and he takes like 3 bites of his sandwich. And on the 3rd bite, he realizes that the cheese slice is still in the plastic wrapper. And we had, you know, it was like we were dying laughing, and we had a great time with that. But that awesome little memory, that funny memory came back. And, you know, and the memory of us, I think the 2 of us were there at the station overnight, and we got a medical call for a vehicle that had gone off the road. It was the middle of winter. And we jump in the fire engine and try to drive up there. And it's in the farther kind of boonies part of the district. And we're coming around a very steep curve, and all of a sudden the fire engine just starts sliding backwards.
Oh,
And we kind of did one of these. We looked at each other. He was driving. My hand went to the door. I was like, I'm ready to jump if needed. And we were about 8 inches from going off the road, and where it was, we would have flipped. But it was just kind of that you look at each other after everything stops, and you're like, oh,
right.
woo, you know. And I mean, the call proceeded with the ambulance couldn't make it up there, so we actually got the patient on a backboard and then put him in the back of our assistant fire chief's truck to drive him down that hill.
Oh, geez.
I mean, and all of us we're slipping and sliding. It was pretty humorous. We'd all take turns laughing at each other as we,
right,
you know, the feet came out, and everybody else, of course, was watching when that happened. Right. You know, so there are all these good memories, these emotional memories, these funny memories, these, oh my God, we almost died together memories. And those just started to flood in. And that was kind of, at this point, I thought, I need to continue that respect and honor my buddy, my brother, my friend. So I asked his wife for permission to do some fundraising. And the goal is to just raise money to help her with, you know, funeral costs. There's a whole lot of extra stuff that insurance doesn't cover.
Sure.
You know, hopefully maybe enough money to pay for a headstone and all that. And so I went online, and he was a fire medic, which is a firefighter paramedic. And he was also one of the medics for the SWAT team.
Oh, wow.
And so he kind of worked that police fire duality. And so I went online and I found those silicone bracelets that are black, and they have that, you know, the thin blue line, thin red line. Well, I found ones that had half of it was red and the other half was blue. And I thought that was so appropriate. So I bought a couple hundred of them, and I posted it online, and basically just was telling everybody, friends and family that we'd run into, hey, I've got these for sale. It's just a quick little, you know, way to help fundraise and for you guys to show your support for this, you know, this brother that we lost. And the reach from that was pretty incredible. We had our manager, our president at the time, came down and handed me an envelope, and he was like, hey, this is for your friend. And I said, let me get you a bracelet. And he's like, no, use those to raise more funds. And he gave us, you know, $50, $100. I think I made a suggested donation of like $5 per bracelet. And
right.
people would give us a 20 or a 50 and then I'd keep the change. And I got a message on, I think it was on my Facebook account. And this gal said, "Hey, I'd like to come up and pick up," I think it was about 30 of them. I said, "Absolutely. Yeah, I'll have them ready for you." And she brought me I don't know if it's check or cash, but I said, "Do you mind if I ask where these 30 of these bracelets are going?" Because it was kind of the largest single, request I had had. And apparently she was one of the training fire instructors for, I want to say it was West Metro.
Oh, wow.
And it was every one of the people in their current recruit class. So people with with the future plan of being a firefighter when they pass their fire, certifications, their hazmat certifications. So that hit me. That was pretty powerful. I think that one transaction hit me pretty good.
Right.
And I was like, well, I guess I could just do a GoFundMe. And if someone wants to just donate there, it's an easy way for them to donate there. And between the GoFundMe and the bracelets, I made I think almost $1,500 off bracelet sales. And the first batch I just bought, and I was like, this is my donation. We did buy another batch and give and sell a bunch of them. But with the GoFundMe and the bracelet sales, we raised just north of $14,000.
That's fantastic.
In 2 weeks.
Wow.
So the reach was incredible. And to be able to set his wife up with, here are the access, I'm passing it off, you get to now withdraw the funds. It was amazing. I felt like I had honored my friend in a good fashion, in a true fashion.
Yep.
And then as the kind of weeks went on, there was a lot of stuff that surfaced that brought my own trauma to bear beyond just losing a friend.
Right.
I took his wife to a hockey game. She was a Rangers fan. I don't know what's wrong with her, and I'm an Avs fan. But it was within the week before, and the Avs were playing the Rangers, and so I asked her if she wanted to go. We went. We had a great time. And while we were there at the game, we were just chatting about a lot of different things. And I had asked her how Shane was doing, and she said, "I think he's struggling." And I said, "Do you want me to reach out to him? Do you think it would help just to reach out and chat?" And she had said yes. And 4 or 5 days later, he's dead.
Right.
I mean, as you can see, it hits me emotionally because realistically, a person who wants to commit suicide, there's almost nothing you can do to stop them.
Right.
Most people are looking for a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And that, with all the education that I've gotten, with all the training and all the things I've read and watched and researched, I can tell you I'm not supposed to have guilt.
Sure.
And I can tell you it's not my fault. But in my soul, there's a scar.
Sure. Well, you're human. You're human before you're anything else.
Yeah. And and that was powerful. And like the stages of grief, I got super pissed, angry, did that question, like, why did this have to happen? Was there something I could have done? Like, if only I had gotten to him, the bargaining, it was, as I look back on it, I was very much so the classical 5 stages of grief. And there are 5 stages. They don't always come in order.
They're not asynchronous.
Yeah. And sometimes it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, and I mean, over the past few years, this hits me randomly and I'll just start crying, or I'll get super into my frontal lobe of just like, I could have done something.
Sure.
And then I have to remind myself, like, no, you're human. You weren't able to help. It didn't go. But then, as like kind of weeks turned to months, I was like, this is really pissing me off. I was like, I could have helped. But I kept that feeling of, but I didn't help. And then it pissed me off that we raised $14,000 for one funeral. And I got to start thinking, okay, if I'd gotten to him first and before this, what kind of services and help could I have provided? And then I thought to myself, $14,000 is a lot of money. That could provide a lot of help to a lot of different people.
Right.
So about mid to late spring, I told my wife another one of my crazy ideas. I looked at her and I was like, babe, I want to start a nonprofit. And she did what she always does. And she goes, you do what you do, I'll support you. And I mean, she's been my rock, my mental health advocate and rebound board. I've had, in the past like 10 years, I've had almost a dozen surgeries. That's how I was removed from the fire service. I was told I was never going to be cleared to do that again. I lost jobs because I was out for so long. And, this is all happening with 2 young kids at home.
Jeez.
I had just, within 2 years or so, started my career as an EMT. And so I've had my own struggles. So
right.
I've come to this self-awareness of, I could jump on a podcast and tell people that I've had super difficult problems with mental health. I've tried different medications. I've tried different therapies. I still struggle. I have good days. I have bad days. But then I remember that I'm human. And I've developed this philosophy, and it's kind of a base with mental health and our jobs as first responders. And it's, we each have a bag of burdens, and your bag can only hold so much. So I physically sewed a leather bag one day because I needed that like visual representation of my bag of burdens. And I would put stones in it. Whenever something like just hit me really hard, I'd throw a stone in there. And then I started talking more about mental health with the general people, right? People at work, people like yourself. And when I say people at work, I'm talking both coworkers as well as patients.
Right.
Because sometimes showing your vulnerable side really helps them understand that they're not alone in this. Like, you're on the other side taking care of them, but they're not alone. And I started realizing this philosophy of every time I share something, right? So I want to say 2 years ago, we had a pediatric cardiac arrest. Most pediatric cardiac arrests are caused from respiratory arrest. Adults, they'll just go because their heart's bad. Most kids in general have good hearts, and their heart stops because their breathing stops. And we had this little 11-month-old boy. And I remember holding my hands like that. I remember the feeling of doing CPR with my thumbs because he was so little.
Right.
And all the things of that day, the police being there, investigation stuff, because they didn't know if it was an on purpose thing or an accidental thing. And that trauma that I left with from that day was horrible.
Right.
And I did the typical thing that I do on my way home. I call my wife and I say, "Hey, babe, just want to let you know I'm on my way home." And I finished it up with, "Don't put the kids to bed." And she could tell right away in my voice that something was wrong.
Yep.
And I got home, I sat down on the couch, and I put one girl on this side and one girl on this side. And I had my arms around them, and we just chatted.
That's awesome.
I didn't tell them
Sure.
the details of the day. I ended up, talking to my wife, obviously with HIPAA compliant for all those rule followers out there. I didn't break any.
That's right.
But it was powerful.
Mm.
But I've realized over the last 2 years, since that happened, that every time I share that story with someone like you, well, I just pulled that stone out and I broke it in half. And now you get to carry some of that because you've heard my story.
That's right.
Right. And this bag, and part of the reason I made my own physical bag was I needed that realization of proof of you can stuff so much in a bag till it's too full.
That's right.
Right. And we all carry things. I know, when I'm 60, it might be a little crumb, a little sand-sized speck, but it'll still be in my bag.
That's right. Always
But
a piece
the goal
of it.
is exactly, but that goal of if we share enough, if we share with enough people, you get the people that understand, you get the people that don't understand, but you help yourself by sharing. And so I've become so much more open with mental health. And I've run into people on airplanes and had like in-depth conversations where if you heard us talking, you would think we were best friends of 20 years.
Right.
And it's just that I've noticed that you open up and they open up. So it's not only are they more receptive, but they're also more willing to share with you.
You've kind of paved the way. You've opened the door.
Exactly. Right. So I'm being selfish and I'm helping myself by sharing this with you. Well, then in turn, you're like, "Oh, I'm going to do this too." And you open up and you give me a chunk of your rock. And now you have a brother or a sister that is carrying that trauma with you.
That's right.
And they might not have been there. They might have run calls very similar or had the exact same scenario. We've had calls in the ED where someone comes in, there's 12 different people working on this patient, and you notice someone is different afterwards.
Right.
And I've gone up and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And it'll be that person reminded me of my grandma. Right. It was nothing to do with the scene or the patient itself and their traumatic experience or their horrendous event.
Right.
But it was that trigger, that secondary trauma.
Well, one of the other programs I work with, the Warrior Bonfire program, they actually have a slogan here that just echoes and lays out exactly what you just said. And that slogan is "Pain shared is pain divided." and that piece there, and then it goes on and expounds to other areas, but it's so true. When you can get around like-minded individuals that understand, that walk in your shoes, they understand where you're coming from. There's a saying that I use all the time, and that is, I don't need to know you to know you, and that, I think that rings so true in that case. So you've had these situations, it's landing on your head. At what point did you say, all right, that's it, we're going official with this thing, we're going to lock this thing in, we're going to make these services available to Colorado first responders?
Yeah, so kind of, I want to say June-ish. By that time, June of 2018, I told my wife, hey, we're going to start this a month or so before. I contacted a nephew of mine, and I said, I'm going to take a picture and send you this crappy hand-drawn photo of what I want the logo to be. Can you make it for me? And I'll pay you. And being my nephew, who's actually like 7 months older than me, he sent me two logos. One that was super inappropriate and crude, and I loved it because that was the only first one he sent me, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And then about 10 minutes later, he sent me the real one, and that is our logo that we've been using from the get-go. It was a hand-drawn version of something, and I sent it to him, and it was a one-shot deal. Like,
wow.
I just saw that image in my head of who we wanted to help and how the process was, right? So,
right.
We've got Wolfpack support services. So we've got the name, and then, we have the Star of Life is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle is the wolf, and kind of each one's an avenue. So there's fire department, EMS, and PD, because those were the original focus groups, if you will, for our target market. And then there's a dove, because when you focus on your mental health and you start to process it, you do become more at peace.
Right.
The middle one is it's like four hands, in a square. And that was we can't do it alone. We're in it together. This is our community and we support each other. And then a brain. It's like an outline of a person's face from the side and a brain, because really, if we don't process this stuff, that's what it's going to destroy.
Well, and I think
in our lives.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important piece there. We've discovered that mental health, every bit of it, as equally as important as, physical health. And you've got to work through that, and got to find ways to exercise that brain and allow it through. That's, that's some powerful stuff. There's no doubt about it. And that motivator factor, how it kicks in. So first responders in Colorado here, we know, even in the veteran support side, there's trying to find a nice way to say this. The fact of the matter is, there are some common denominators that we find with veterans, first responders, and that one of those is they don't want to ever be looked at or felt like they're a burden. In many cases, from my experience of seeing, that's Absolutely. At the heart a lot of times. That sense of that they're not helpful or whatever. That a lot of times they feel those things, be them wrong or whatnot. And that's at the heart of a lot of their anxiety piece, their depression piece. And so expecting them to reach out is just, in my personal opinion, a very naive approach. Some of them will, but there's I think every bit equal portion that they don't want to be a burden to someone. So how do you reach them? What are the efforts that the Wolfpack does to reach out and go, yo, just so you're aware, we're here. How does that, what's that look like for you guys?
A lot of it's word of mouth.
Right.
I knew, for sure for the first year, we're building the organization, and we probably were going to have nobody to take care of. I mean, let's be honest. And we really didn't the first year. So the first year it was a good way to kind of come into it, because we were able to develop a lot of our, kind of operating procedures and things that we needed to put in place to really be able to provide help. And I will share. So Wolfpack has a Twitter account. They have an Instagram account. We have a Facebook account. And we share stuff. I'll make a meme. There was a guy, you'll love this. So I reached out to a guy who is a photographer, and I'm like, wow, this guy Christian is amazing. And he had some really cool wolf photos. So I sent him a text or a private message on Instagram. And I said, this is who I am. This is what our organization is. This is what we do. And he responded with, absolutely, I'd be willing to give you guys rights to any of my photos to use and alter, And I said, just so you're aware, I said, if there's anything sold, you will get a royalty, right? Like, I'm not trying to take your photo. I'm trying to use your photo to send a powerful message.
Right.
And it might be 3 wolves together of like, we're all looking in the same direction. You might be in the middle, but we got your back,
Yep.
Kind of things along that. Well, it turned out he was like, I'm actually an ICU nurse.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, dude, that is incredible. Maybe, if you ever need, we're here to help. And he goes, I probably won't hit you guys up because I'm an ICU nurse in Germany.
Oh.
So like, first year, we've already got, that connection that was across the pond. And
right.
That was very powerful for me. So, making memes that are not always pretty or happy or positive, but they send the message.
Right.
We've got this meme. I'm gonna grab our brochure to show you. And this is probably one of the most powerful ones I've created.
Right.
And that one I've had a lot of feedback from, because that's who we are, right? How you doing? I'm fine. Well, we're first responders. We got into this role to help people, not to be a burden, right?
Yeah.
Not to be that weak link, not to be, viewed in a different point, until you realize, wow, I said I was struggling, and everybody on my shift asked what they can do to help, or if I wanted to talk about it. Mind you, we're first responders, so we're probably also going to give you a hard time.
Right.
and that's that brotherhood, sisterhood thing, right? Like,
it's part of it.
I make fun of you because I love you.
Yep.
And so sometimes when the outside person sees us interacting with each other, they don't always get it. They're not like, oh, you just worked a cardiac arrest and he passed away, and you're like, I'm going to go eat lunch. It's a different breed. We've already got something loose. We've all had that one screw removed, and that's why we're in this industry. But I've noticed that one has really hit people, and I'll get private messages and they're like, man, this one, it just stuck with me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good explanation of what we're trying to change, right? The I'm fine to I'm not okay.
Yep.
And that's not that's that typical firehouse change or medical world change. It's slow.
Yeah.
It moves at a very slow pace, right? Because we had all these deep-seated roots that were polar opposite to that. It's, you come here to do it, do your job, shut up. I don't want to hear how you feel about it. And that's really changing. And we get people will send us a Instagram message or a Facebook message and say, hey, I'm looking for some help.
Right.
They'll send us an email, or we have a comment box on the website, and people will send us a message, and it comes into my inbox, and I'm like, this guy just asked for help, and he gave me his phone number. He said, I'm struggling. It's now affecting my marriage or my other job, or whatever it may be. And we reach out. Mind you, that guy or gal has already made the first hardest step.
That's huge. Yeah.
Which is that asking for help.
Yeah.
That what I've found out is that doesn't mean the next step is easy, right? I've gotten people that will reach out and say, hey, I need help. We reach out, they won't text back or they won't email back. And then 2 or 3 months later, you get an email or a text and they're like, yeah, I still need help. So we reach out again. Hey, what can we do for you? And they'll come around and they're like, okay, I'm ready. Like, this is affecting my life too much.
Right.
Whether that's their own mental status, relationships, jobs, whatever. Right? Because I don't care if you're coming to me because you have job-related trauma that's affecting your marriage. I don't care if you come to me and say, my wife, who works in IT, needs help because of everything I've exposed her to.
Right. Right.
Because to me, something is funny, and to someone else, they're like, you're a disgusting individual.
They don't have the same humor piece.
Yeah. We, typically in the worlds of first responders, we have very dark sense of humor, and not everybody else does. And
it's a coping mechanism, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think firsthand seeing the effect that my friend's suicide had on his wife was that first indicator of and families.
Yep.
Was adding that and families piece, because I know both on the job related side and on the personal, having a ton of surgeries, which have caused, like, I had post-surgical PTSD, and they're like, oh, try to, go see this person. Totally. I'm like, let's do it. She's like, try these meds. I'm like, I'm not feeling good on these meds. And she's like, oh, well, let's just double the dose. And I was like on the verge of suicidal from the medication. So I'm like, yeah, you and I are not gelling. I found a new clinician. He's like, have you ever tried this form of therapy? And I was like, I don't even know what you just said. And it's EMDR. And he's like, let's try it. And we did it for a handful of sessions. And then one day I relived the previous 5 years in a 45-minute session.
Jeez.
With no emotion. Like, I wasn't emotional. I was just at a point mentally where I was like, I'm processing this because of the EMDR therapy.
Yeah.
And I walked out of there and I was like, I feel like drunk or wasted or high, or I was like, I'm 150 pounds lighter and I feel amazing.
Right.
But it was so polar opposite to what I had been feeling. That's why I felt altered.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm not altered. I'm just back to where I should be.
Right. You got that center back.
Exactly. And and then I'll follow up. Our clinicians, say we approve someone for 6 sessions with a, clinician. The clinician bills us directly. So the person is not responsible to that. Wolfpack, being a nonprofit, gets a discounted rate for services. So, say a therapy session is $150 and we pay $75. So instead of that person having to pay $150 for a therapy session, we provided them 2 sessions for free, and all it cost us was $150.
Right.
Right. So we'll approve, to kind of depending on what the clinician says, because typically the clinician will provide a free consultation meeting. So they talk to the client. No information beyond that is told to us, except we have a conversation. The clinician's like, I think 6 sessions would be a good starting point, kind of go from there. And I run it past the board, or we have some new things in place. So there's a standard approval. If anybody asks for help right away, you get a free session. And the kind of follow up from there is we talk to the clinician. I'm like, I don't care what the issue is. How many sessions do you think this person needs?
Right.
Like, what's a good starting point? And then, we kind of with the clinician make a starting point and have those sessions available. And I get an email later. It's like, oh, we got a bill from them. I'm like, cool. Somebody had a session. And about, say we approve 6 sessions, at the end of session 5 or right around that time, we'll get an email or a phone call from the clinician. And they're like, hey, things are going well. I think this patient would really benefit from another 4 to 6 sessions. And they kind of give us a range. And then, with whatever we're able to do financially, we will kind of bring to the table and say, cool, we're approving them for this many more sessions. Same thing happens. We get billed. Patient just gets to have their free therapy.
That's powerful. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I will jump on and I'll text someone and I'll just be like, hey, bro, just checking in on you. I know you're going to sessions. I just hope they're helping. Let me know if you need anything else. Like if we can do anything else for you. And I got one back, I want to say in December. And it made my friggin' week because it was like, thank you guys so much. I'm feeling so much better. Work's going better. My relationship's better. And I don't think I could have done it without you guys.
That's awesome. That's powerful.
And if that's the only person we ever help in our friggin' tenure as a nonprofit, like that's why I started this.
Right.
Right. Because I don't want anybody else to feel like their only option or their best option is to end their life.
Right. That's, that's the power in that. There, it sounds corny when you say, if we say only, if we connect with one, but I've been now involved long enough to, on the outside, involved long enough to know that it's not corny. It is exactly the motivation behind this. It's one connection we're looking to make. And once we make that, I'm going to look for another connection that I'm looking to make. We're just going to keep that rolling, and keep it going. So that's fantastic stuff. I mean, it's, seeing that stuff firsthand. So let's talk about 2022 here, this year specifically. What's on deck for you guys? What are some goals you guys are looking to do right now? What's this year or maybe next year looking like for Wolfpack right now?
I always like to create super lofty, unachievable goals for myself. Because then it just pushes me to strive more, right?
Gotcha.
And in December, I was kind of thinking, what would I be stoked about if we did with Wolfpack next year? Besides, like helping people, obviously, like we always want more clients.
Continue the mission, right? Keep it
not
going.
Not because people are suffering, but because they're getting to be okay with reaching out because they're suffering, And I thought to myself late one night, it was probably like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I was like, man, if we could fundraise $100,000, that would be incredible.
Yeah.
I was like, if we had $75,000 in a bank, that's 75. At $75,000 divided by 75 a session. I was like, that's 1,000 therapy sessions. That's a lot. And that's a lot of people that you can help, and a lot of people you can help for longer, right? I don't want to just go, hey, I'm sorry, because I know there are going to be constraints, and I know there are going to be times where it's like, I'm sorry, all we could do for you is 12 sessions.
Right.
But one of the other deals that I like, again, I was like, I'm going to aim high, right? Because if they tell me no, I'm still probably better off than where I was.
Right.
Rule one of negotiating, folks: always ask for more than you think you want. And so every time I've asked a clinician to join us, I've asked them that if there comes a point in time when the patient needs to continue their service and Wolfpack is no longer footing the bill, will you extend that discounted rate? Every single one of them has said yes.
That's awesome.
Right. So
And
now
so-
that person can buy 2 sessions for $150 instead of having to pay $150 every time.
And so you guys are creating, you have like a network of clinicians that you work with right now.
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
in my, again, hopes and dreams, I would like to have 40, 50, 100 clinicians.
Wow.
Because COVID in 2020 and 2021 has made all of them very busy.
I bet. Yeah.
Which is leading to where we call a clinician, they're like, I just can't take on a new client right now.
Right.
So every clinician has an ebb and flow. And if we can develop a large enough network, someone's always going to be ebbing,
Exactly.
And so there'll always be a clinician available or multiple clinicians available for us to tap into. So if there are any licensed clinical social workers, therapists out there, and you want to help, hit us up, because even if you don't do anything for us for a year, the fact that you're there if we need you is huge.
It's that network piece. Yeah.
Yeah. And, we recently connected with Medicine Horse, and we'll send people there, as well as 1 or 2 other equine therapies. And over the summer, I sent 3 or 4 people to a class. The feedback I got so we had a horse trainer and a therapist, like a mental health
Yep.
gal there. So they worked with the patients. The feedback I got from both of them was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The feedback I got from each individual that did the therapy was just like mine.
Yep.
Like, that was amazing. I didn't know I had all that stuff bottled up.
Yep.
And I got such amazing feedback regarding one person who's a friend of mine. So as soon as I read that email, I jump on, I text her, and I said, hey, I wanted to see what you thought and how you felt it went.
Right.
It was like, it was amazing. It was life-changing. It was all this. So I emailed back the gal that runs the program. And I said, we want to sponsor her for 4 weeks of once a week private sessions with you. And I said, but I don't want to tell her. I want you to call her and tell her, or you to email her, right? Yeah, Wolfpack's footing the bill, but who did all the work? The clinician and the horse, trainer.
Sure.
So I had them reach out, and I got immediately, I know she sent the email right away, because within 15 minutes, I had a text from my friend. Oh my God, you guys are so amazing. I don't even know what to tell you right now. And that was awesome. And the text message back from her after was the services they provide. She did kind of a little testimonial, and I haven't even shared that testimonial anywhere, but just reading it myself.
Sure.
Was that okay? This is the validation. Like, this is why we do it.
That's awesome.
And what do you do? What do you say if we spend $1,000 on a person? What's the limit? If we spend $5,000 on a person, what are we looking at here? What's the limit? And yeah, we're a nonprofit and we don't have an unlimited budget. I'm still waiting on Elon Musk to drop us in his back pocket.
That's right.
But until that happens, right, we do have to figure out how we can help the most people the most.
Right.
But with that being said, it's, you start thinking about it, you're like, what is a life worth? What's the value? What's the number?
Right.
And you start asking people those questions, and it's pretty intense. Like I've heard that the average cost kind of damage control and everything of I think it's either a police officer or first responder, like a firefighter, taking their life. The average cost, if you kind of follow that downstream, is about $1 million.
Jeez.
Right. So you have to dealing with that. You have to deal with everybody else on the department and making sure they have the right mental health team. You have to have an on-site crisis person. You have to take sometimes an entire crew out of service.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've had times where a neighboring agency will call and say, we heard, we're going to come over and man your station 6. Don't worry about it, guys.
Right.
And another district picks up the slack because it's a brotherhood and a sisterhood and a family.
Yep.
Like you said, I don't know you, but I know you.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you reach out and you're like, hey, I'm from New Jersey. You definitely don't know me. I need help. Let's do it.
Done and done.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'll be honest, when COVID started, we're still a young nonprofit. And in the first couple of months, I was like, we're dead. Like we're dead in the water. This is going to kill us. And then I started seeing this greater expanse of, we're going to see you and do your therapy session, but you're not coming into the office. I have what's right. Like I have to protect myself and I have to protect you as the patient. So now all of a sudden there's this massive increase in telehealth.
Yep.
Okay. I could telehealth my doctor in Boulder. Well, why couldn't he talk to someone in New Jersey or Washington State or Texas?
Exactly.
Right. It instantaneously, in my opinion, turned us from a smaller local organization to a global organization.
Yeah.
Or at least national, right?
Technology can certainly bridge a lot of that, of those aspects for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I even had a vendor that's provided some of our products. I got a private message from him one day and he said, hey, can I ask you a question? And I responded, shoot, yeah, absolutely. And he said, hey, my brother is a GI doc. And in the past couple months, he's like, I don't live close to him. I think he was in like Indiana and the vendor is in like Montana or something.
Right.
And so he's like, I think he's struggling. And I don't think he's willing to go to therapy or at least go to therapy on his own. So I responded with, look, obviously you have our information. Feel free to provide our information. I said, if you think it'll come better from you, here's what I would give you advice wise, right? Talk to him, make it personal, say, hey, bro, in-law, I could hear you're struggling. I know you're struggling. Are you getting help? Do you even feel like you're struggling? So I gave him this kind of bullet point of how to approach a scenario. And I said, here's what I would recommend. And, so it was here are questions to ask and here's my recommendation. And about a month or 6 weeks later, I got another message and it's a thank you. I had a great conversation with my brother-in-law. And I think our conversation was so real and true that he realized he needed help. And now he's seeing a therapist.
That's awesome.
And that's That's a private message on Instagram
Right.
that I got from a vendor a few states away, to our northwest. And we just helped someone 8 states away on the east,
Right.
And so that was powerful for me. And it really opened up that, that viewpoint of, yeah, it's scary, but we can go national,
Sure. Sure.
and like you said, it's growing that network. Obviously, if you're in Kansas, we don't necessarily have an equine therapy, right? But if you call us and you say, hey, I need some help, I've been looking into equine therapy and I've been talking to these people.
Yep.
I'll respond with, awesome. Can you email them and me and introduce me? And then I'm going to pull you out of it. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to say, hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is our goal. And this is how we've done it in the past.
Nice.
Does this sound like something you're willing to work with? And all of a sudden, now we got an equine therapy in Kansas. Again, that's how it happens. I've had half a dozen things happen like that, where it's just like someone will call and say, oh, hey, yeah, you need to meet this person. Just like you did today. Hey,
Yep.
You need to meet these 2 equine therapy people.
Yep. Well, and I can up that one more further with this network of communication you're talking about. The Warrior Bonfire program has just launched I think they call it, I'm paraphrasing on this and I apologize, but I think it's called the Portal of Hope. And what this is a resource for veterans, first responders to go to, and they can basically put in a couple search criteria of certain things they're looking for, and a list of nonprofit services starts to pop up. And
that's
it's
awesome.
Yeah, they're building this. It's like a crowdsource, if you will, that it's starting to build up. I'm going to connect you with those guys. We need to get Wolfpack listed in there.
I would love to.
And then you can use it, if you're looking for other areas, because the bonfire is a national, they stretch their, I believe Mike is at a Centennial, retired Lieutenant Colonel Mike Foss. He's out of Centennial, I believe, but they're a national organization. So yeah, those networks and those connections, that's the piece, be that conduit, right?
Absolutely.
Funnel that information across there.
Yeah. And nonprofits helping nonprofits is, it's great, right?
It's huge. It's what we have to do. We're all, tied. I say I am a for-profit organization. We purposely chose that because if I position myself as a nonprofit, well, then I'm competing for the same funds that you guys are. And that makes a really weird situation. So we're a for-profit. We're here to work for you and do what we can to help, get your word out there. So, well, listen, man, we can't thank you enough for taking this time here to explain the Wolfpack.
I loved it.
I guarantee you that what we'll be doing through production here, we'll have all your social media stuff up there. And it's safe to say that if you're a first responder out there, anywhere, if you're viewing this here, look up the Wolfpack, know that they're there. There's resources. And I've put this deal out there before, and I said it in an interview that I had with Shout Out Colorado. I don't want to envision a world where we have first responders, depleted in numbers or feeling like they're somehow devalued. That's just the young folks that carry certain high motivations for certain topics, I think are lacking some wisdom piece to understand that an experience piece, I should say, not wisdom, experience of this world, of what it is to be a first responder out there. Are there issues? Yeah, of course there are. But the burden that you guys wear out there is something that, our mission is to remind you guys how much we love you, how much we need you. And the fact that you guys are putting that, forward with these people, I think that's just something that's super exciting. I'm looking forward to working with you guys and see what we can do to help you out.
I'm excited. I know personally, hunting, fishing is such a value of mental health to me. My wife will be like, no, you need to leave for 3 days and try to go elk hunting. And whether it's, armed hiking, as I like to call it, when I don't even see anything,
Armed hiking.
but right. It's that experience, like
Yep.
the people that don't understand hunting and don't understand fishing
Yep.
is a bad day of doing it is always better than a good day at work.
Absolutely.
And the harvest, right? Because I harvest the meat to take home to consume. So the harvest is a bonus to
There
the
you go.
hunt,
There
right?
you go.
It's the experience. And that's why I was definitely super excited to connect with you, because
Yeah.
I know what kind of value that brings personally. And a lot of us are super outdoorsy. I mean, we live in Colorado. This is a very outdoorsy state,
Absolutely.
and we try to be unique.
Well, I'm all on the catch and release side of things in the sporting side. We're very much catch and release there, but we could absolutely consider this an open invitation, man. We got to go fishing. We'll have to get out
Oh,
there.
I'd love to.
We'll try to find, as I get more acquainted with these local lakes and so forth around this area here. We've got some big news we're waiting to release here that's going to allow us to be able to get on a lot of these smaller bodies of water a lot easier with people.
Awesome.
So we'll get it set up here. We got some good sponsors getting behind us on a lot of these events. But yeah, open invitation. We'll go out. We'll talk fishing, and
I would love to.
Then we'll have to go do a semi-armed boat trip to go out and find some trout or something like that we can go harvest out there.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, funny thing. When I fish, I only catch and release unless there's somebody else I know that might want a trout or something. I actually don't even like fish, the taste. I've never liked it, and my wife doesn't like it. And then when friends who know me are like, wait, you don't eat fish? I'm like, I will catch it, I will gut it, I'll clean it, and I'll cook it for you, but I'm not eating it. Like, it's just, I've never had that taste. And catch and release is, I've noticed, exceptionally harder when elk and deer hunting. So those I've decided to
it's
catch.
The bait.
Much safer.
It's all in the bait that you're using with your elk for catch and release.
Yeah. So.
All right. Listen, man, thank you so very much. We appreciate you coming on here, and we're looking forward to following along and having you guys back on here.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And I do want to just jump into one thing real quick. In May, we are going to be doing a 2-week fundraiser and auction.
Perfect.
The auction platform we use is really awesome. It's designed so if someone buys $100 item, there's a small service charge that's added. So they pay $108, but we actually get a full 100, and they even give us a slight percentage of what's on top.
Okay.
So we might get $101, whereas a lot of the other platforms we researched cost a lot of money. You either have to pay a flat fee and per item, or you might get dinged, 20%, right? So you think you're donating $100, but the nonprofit's only getting 80. So we're going to use them again. We used them before. I loved their service. So we'll have our online auction will go for 2 weeks. And during that 2-week time, we're going to jump on social media and do lives. We'll do giveaways. Obviously we love the support and the donations. That's what helps us really do what we do. But if people just jump on and say, here's my name, you're going to be entered into the drawing. So whether you donate or not, I know this year we've got some signed memorabilia coming from the Avalanche.
Oh, very cool.
And the Denver Nuggets.
Nice.
And then we got another barbecue donated, like an awesome, almost $600 brand new barbecue from Pit Boss. And just hundreds of little things that we get donated to. But it's fun because it's nice for us to plug these awesome organizations that are willing to support us.
Heck yeah.
But also give stuff back to the community beyond just mental health. And, we have we've had such random things, and I've had people go, well, what do you want? And I'm like, whatever you want to donate, whether it's, I don't know, whether it's a signed book, whether it's a 20-minute Skype sesh with you and you're
Right.
a hockey player or a basketball player or whatever, and that's the fun thing about this auction is we really can take anything,
Sure.
and have that kind of fun, totally unique, totally different, not just mental health related items.
Right.
And just kind of, give back to those people that
Celebration
spend
piece.
so much time, supporting us. So,
Well, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to as we get closer to that. You and I should connect with that. We'll obviously pipe this through all of our social media as well. Get people ramped up for it. Let them know where it's at, and we'll make sure that they're seeing the stuff. And who knows, maybe we find some donators for you.
awesome.
I was thinking about what I make. I just make a mess usually. That's pretty much what I'm really good at. So
do I. I just now make a mess in a nonprofit.
there you go.
I tell people I only learn from my mistakes, but that is why I'm so smart. That
Awesome.
they've written books with information I have no idea about. So thousands of them.
That's right. All right, man. Well, again, thank you so very much for coming on here, and we're going to follow along with the Wolfpack there. And obviously, folks, reach out to them there and let them know you're out there if there's something you think you can do to help them out. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We're super excited to be on the podcast and also start working with you and having those services that we can offer as a different form of therapy.
Heck yeah. Awesome. All right.
Awesome. All right.